The level of cruelty, calculation, and inhumanity in this case reflects something far deeper than anger or impulse. It reflects evil, which is why I carry no burden and find no hesitation in sentencing you to life.
Just told you.
No, you think you told me.
I think you told me.
No, there's a big difference.
I'm not sure what you're getting at. Either take me home or give me a lawyer, because I'm not really, what you're doing is really odd.
Some killers broke down in tears. Others never flinched. Zachariah Anderson denied everything until the very end, while Brendan Benjamin Roy Naylor stood silently as 4 life sentences were handed down. But each courtroom ended the same way, with a sentence that changed their lives forever. Let's begin.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Zachariah Anderson, guilty of stalking Rosalio Gutierrez as charged.
A father vanished without leaving behind a single goodbye. A Wisconsin father disappeared without a trace. His body was never found, but investigators believe the evidence told a different story. What began as a missing person case soon uncovered an alleged pattern of obsession, jealousy, and stalking that ended with a life sentence. In May 2020, 36-year-old Rosalio Gutierrez suddenly disappeared from Kenosha, Wisconsin. A devoted father, son, and friend, he stopped answering calls and never returned home. His disappearance alarmed his loved ones, who knew something was wrong. When investigators searched Rosalio's home, they found disturbing evidence, along with evidence that someone had tried to clean the scene that suggested a horrible crime had taken place, although Rosalio's body was never recovered. As the search continued, investigators uncovered a possible source of conflict. Rosalio had recently begun dating Sadie Beecham, the former girlfriend of Zachariah Anderson. Anderson struggled to accept that the relationship had ended and became increasingly fixated on the couple. Detectives immediately began retracing Rosalio's final days. They reviewed surveillance footage, which shows Anderson was recorded at a Walmart buying garbage bags, latex gloves, bleach wipes, and canned sardines. Analyzed phone records and interviewed witnesses. Their investigation revealed that Anderson had repeatedly followed and monitored Rosalio and Sadie before the disappearance. Prosecutors argued that the physical evidence, digital records, and Anderson's behavior before the disappearance pointed to one conclusion. After gathering months of evidence, Anderson was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional homicide, hiding a corpse, and stalking. The case went to trial in 2023, where prosecutors presented their evidence despite the absence of a body. They argued that the combination of forensic evidence and surveillance footage that followed Anderson's movements through security and traffic cameras pieced together the hours after Rosalio vanished. And Anderson's repeated stalking proved Rosalio had been killed. The defense maintained there was no direct evidence linking Anderson to a murder. Prosecutors said jealousy was the driving force behind the crime. They argued that Anderson could not accept that his former girlfriend had moved on with Rosalio. According to the prosecution, that obsession escalated into stalking and ultimately led to Rosalio's death. After hearing weeks of testimony, the jury found Anderson guilty on all 3 charges. At his sentencing hearing, Anderson showed no emotion and continued to insist he was innocent. He told the court he had not killed anyone, stalked anyone, or disposed of a body. And,
"I'm innocent, Judge. Not guilty. I'm innocent."
Judge Bruce Schroeder rejected those claims, reminding Anderson that the jury had carefully considered the evidence before reaching its verdict. The judge sentenced Zachariah Anderson to life in prison for first-degree intentional homicide, with the possibility of supervised release only after serving 40 years. He also received an additional 10-year sentence for hiding a corpse and stalking. Because of the way the sentences were structured, Anderson is not expected to become eligible for release until his 90s. The sentence brought some measure of justice to Rosalio's family, but it could not erase their grief. His mother told the court that Anderson had taken a father away from his children, a son away from his family. She said she still hopes that one day he will reveal where Rosalio's body is so they can finally lay him to rest. His son also spoke of the pain the loss had caused, making it clear that even with a life sentence, the family's search for true closure is not over. Rosalio Gutierrez's body was never found, but the evidence revealed a deadly obsession. Our next case begins inside a calm family home, where a staged scene exposed a plan that left 2 people dead.
"I am not responsible for her death. This is not a knife that I ever held in my hand, and I never stabbed her."
What seemed like a normal day inside a Virginia home soon unraveled into a chilling mystery. At first, police believed they were responding to a deadly encounter with an intruder. But as investigators uncovered the evidence, they alleged the scene had been carefully staged, exposing an orchestrated plan that left 2 innocent people dead. On the morning of February 24, 2023, police responded to a home in Herndon, Virginia, where they found 37-year-old Christine Banfield and 39-year-old Joseph Ryan dead from gunshot wounds. Brendan Banfield, Christine's husband, and a former IRS law enforcement officer, claimed he had walked into the bedroom and shot Ryan after finding him attacking his wife with a knife. At first glance, the story seemed believable, but investigators soon discovered that the evidence did not match Brendan's account. As detectives examined the crime scene and reviewed digital evidence, they uncovered a secret relationship between Brendan Banfield and the family's Brazilian au pair, Juliana Perez Magalhães. Investigators learned the pair had allegedly spent months planning the crime. According to prosecutors, they created fake online messages while posing as Christine on a website intended for adults. Using those messages, they lured Joseph Ryan to the Banfield home under the false promise of a private encounter involving a knife. On the morning of the killings, prosecutors said Juliana waited outside with the Banfield's 4-year-old daughter while Ryan entered the house. She then called Brendan, who had been waiting nearby. After the child was taken safely to the basement, Brendan confronted Ryan in the bedroom, shot him, and then fatally stabbed Christine with the knife Ryan had brought. Prosecutors said Juliana later fired another shot when Ryan was still moving before the pair staged the scene to resemble a deadly home invasion. The case went to trial in 2026. Jurors rejected Brendan's version of events and found him guilty of aggravated murder, second-degree murder, child endangerment, and firearm-related charges. During sentencing, Brendan maintained that he was innocent and insisted he had loved his wife despite having affairs. Judge Penny Ascarate rejected his claims, describing the murders as evil, calculated, and carefully planned. She also criticized his lack of remorse and the lasting impact the crime would have on the couple's young daughter. Prosecutors argued that Brendan wanted to build a future with Juliana Magalhães, but did not want to divorce Christine. They said he feared losing money in a divorce and wanted to keep custody of his daughter. According to prosecutors, those motives led to a plan that claimed the lives of both Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan. Brendan Banfield was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murders. He also received an additional 5 years and 3 years for a firearm offense. However, he remained motionless throughout the verdict. Juliana Magalhães pleaded guilty to manslaughter after testifying against him and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Christine's family remembered her as a kind and selfless pediatric intensive care nurse whose loss forever changed their lives. Her colleagues said,
"I miss our texts. I miss her laugh."
Joseph Ryan's loved ones described him as a compassionate man who cared deeply for his family and even rescued unwanted animals. While the guilty verdict brought justice, both families said nothing could replace the people they had lost. A staged crime scene exposed Brendan Banfield's secret. Our next case exploded into the spotlight when one shocking social media post exposed a deadly argument turned murder.
Wasn't just a victim. She wasn't just a body on the floor to be discovered. She was a wonderful, amazing person. She was very forgiving, funny, smart.
A heated argument inside a Florida townhouse ended with a post that stunned millions. What first appeared to be another message on social media quickly became evidence in a murder investigation, leading police to a scene they would never forget. On the morning of August 8, 2013, Derek Medina and his 26-year-old wife, Jennifer Alfonso, became involved in a household argument inside their South Miami townhouse. According to investigators, the argument escalated after Jennifer told Medina she was leaving him. Medina later claimed she punched him and picked up a knife during the confrontation. Police said Medina took the knife away, but instead of leaving the situation, he went upstairs, retrieved a handgun, and returned to the kitchen. Investigators said he then fired multiple shots at Jennifer, killing her inside the home. Her 10-year-old daughter, who was inside the townhouse at the time, was not physically harmed. Shortly after the shooting, a disturbing message appeared on Medina's Facebook page. Alongside a photo of Jennifer's body, Medina wrote that he expected to go to prison or face the death penalty and claimed he had acted after years of mistreatment. The post spread rapidly before it was removed several hours later. After changing his clothes, Medina drove to a family member's home and admitted what had happened. He then walked into the South Miami Police Department and told officers he had shot his wife. Police responded to the townhouse, where they found Jennifer's body in the kitchen. Investigators seized multiple electronic devices, including cell phones, computers, and a tablet as part of the investigation. During questioning, Medina admitted shooting Jennifer multiple times. Prosecutors charged him with first-degree murder. They argued that after disarming Jennifer, he had enough time to leave the home, but instead chose to retrieve a firearm and return downstairs before opening fire. The Facebook post and Medina's own statements became key pieces of evidence in the case. Medina claimed he acted after enduring mistreatment during their relationship and said Jennifer attacked him during the argument. Prosecutors, however, argued that the evidence showed he made a deliberate decision to return with a gun after the confrontation had already changed, making the shooting intentional rather than an act of self-defense. In 2017, a jury found Derek Medina guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, and the court also imposed additional penalties related to the use of a firearm during the crime.
Today, the court will find you guilty on all counts.
However, he remained motionless throughout the verdict. Jennifer Alfonso's death left her family devastated, while her young daughter unimaginably lost her mother. Her father said,
"Words cannot express the pain and emotional anguish that the defendant has caused me. He changed the lives of family."
Derek Medina's own words became powerful evidence against him. In our next case, the victim left behind a handwritten warning that would help expose the person she feared most.
So this was within a matter of days of Julie's death?
That's correct.
And he was asking you about whether his girlfriend should come to his wife's wake and funeral?
That's correct.
A Wisconsin mother feared she would not live much longer. Before anything happened, she wrote a letter naming the one person she feared most and asked a neighbor to give it to the police if anything happened to her. At the time, no one knew that letter would one day become the centerpiece of a murder case. On December 3, 1998, 40-year-old Julie Jensen was found dead inside her home in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. At first, her death appeared to be the result of an illness, but Julie had already told the closest to her that she feared for her life. Before her death, Julie had grown suspicious of her husband, Mark Jensen. She investigated his behavior, checking his planner, photographed a note she found, and documented her concerns. Believing something might happen to her, she wrote a letter stating that she would never take her own life and that if she died, police should consider her husband as a suspect. She gave the letter to a trusted neighbor with instructions to hand it over if the worst happened. As detectives investigated Julie's death, they discovered she had died from antifreeze poisoning. The handwritten letter immediately drew their attention, describing Julie's growing fear and her belief that Mark's unusual behavior placed her in danger. Investigators also uncovered evidence suggesting problems in the marriage, including Mark's infidelity, which prosecutors later argued provided a motive for the crime. In 2008, Mark Jensen stood trial for his wife's murder. Prosecutors relied heavily on Julie's letter, arguing that it revealed her state of mind before her death. A jury found Mark guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, and he was sentenced to life in prison. However, the case didn't end there. In 2015, his conviction was overturned on appeal, leading to years of legal battles. After a second trial in 2023, another jury once again found Mark Jensen guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. Prosecutors argued that Mark Jensen murdered Julie to continue an extramarital relationship without the complications of divorce. They said his infidelity was the driving force behind the carefully planned poisoning. Following his second conviction in 2023, Mark Jensen was again sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision, bringing one of Wisconsin's longest-running murder cases to a close.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Mark D. Jensen, guilty of intentional homicide of the first degree as charged in the information.
However, he showed no remorse for his actions. Although Julie's letter could not save her life, it ensured her voice was heard in court. Her warning became a powerful piece of evidence, helping prosecutors secure justice more than 2 decades after her death. Julie Jensen's letter spoke for her long after she was gone, but our final case wasn't one planned in secret over years. It was a fast-moving shooting spree that left 4 people dead before it finally came to an end.
So many lives shattered. The term heartbreak doesn't even begin to describe it.
One peaceful summer day turned into a nightmare that stretched across 2 counties. By nightfall, 4 people had been killed at 3 different locations, leaving investigators racing to stop a shooting spree before more lives were lost. On July 8, 2025, police in southern Idaho responded to a home in Rupert, where 35-year-old Angelica Pearl Medina was found dead from a gunshot wound. Before investigators could fully process the scene, more emergency calls began coming in. Later that day, deputies discovered 66-year-old Kelly Jenks and 62-year-old Donna Jenks fatally shot inside their Burley home. Around the same time, 77-year-old Dennis Mix was found dead inside a parked vehicle behind Connor's Cafe in Heyburn. Within hours, 4 lives had been taken, and authorities feared the gunman was still on the move. Law enforcement agencies across the region joined forces to track the suspect. Detectives reviewed doorbell camera footage from Medina's home, which showed a man matching Benjamin Roy Naylor's description, arriving and leaving with a handgun concealed beneath his jacket. Investigators connected the same suspect to all 4 crime scenes. Later that evening, officers stopped a gold 2013 Toyota Tundra on State Highway 75. Naylor was taken into custody without incident. Police recovered a 1911-style handgun and linked both the firearm and the vehicle to the investigation. Naylor was charged with 4 counts of murder and remained in custody without bond. The case was delayed for months while court-ordered competency evaluations determined whether he was fit to stand trial. Eventually, Naylor accepted a plea agreement approved by the victims' families, avoiding a lengthy trial. Authorities didn't identify a single personal motive connecting all 4 victims. Prosecutors acknowledged that Naylor had a long history of severe mental illness, which became a significant factor during the legal proceedings and sentencing. However, under Idaho law, mental illness did not excuse the crimes. In March 2026, Benjamin Roy Naylor was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences, ensuring he'll spend the remainder of his life in prison. Prosecutors chose not to seek the death penalty after consulting with the victims' families, who said they wanted certainty and an end to years of appeals. But he didn't show any signs of guilt for his actions. The shooting spree left 4 families grieving unimaginable losses. Angelica Medina's 4 children were left without their mother, while the families of Kelly and Donna Jenks and Dennis Mix faced the pain of losing loved ones in a single day of attack. Someone from the victim's family said,
"It's like a stab in your chest, and sometimes you can't even breathe around it."
Although the life sentences brought justice, no sentence could undo the lasting impact of the tragedy. These killers committed different crimes, but every case ended the same way, with guilty verdicts, grieving families, and lives spent behind prison walls. In the end, every judge delivered a sentence, but for the families left behind, justice could never undo the pain they carried. And if you want even more content, join our membership for exclusive videos and early access to every upload. Your support helps us keep telling these stories. The join button's below, or scan the QR code on screen now. Thanks for watching.